There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Saturday, June 13th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is flat in the last 24 hours, up about 0.06%, with a last of 9,438, a high of 9,485, and a low of 9,318. That's $1 for 10,595 Satoshis. Volume's about right for a Saturday with 2,181 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 83% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance is at 65.64%. And now another reading from my brand new Charles Bukowski poetry book, The Continual Condition. More posthumous poems from Bukowski. And posthumous poems means written when he was older, and that means even more depressing. And now Charles Bukowski, moving towards age 73. Yes, it's true. I'm mellowing. In the old days, to cross my room, you'd have to step around and between empty bottles. Now, after I empty them, I stack them neatly in paper cartons. I'm a good citizen now. I save the bottles for the city of Los Angeles to recycle. And I haven't seen the inside of a drunk tank for a good 10 years. I lock the door when I drink, and only inflict the damage on myself. Boring, isn't it? But it's not too bad, listening to Mahler as the walls dance. As a recluse, it's enough for me. So now I'm turning the streets back over to you, tough guy. Here's another one from across the page. I saw a tramp last night. The way the old dog walked, with tired, dotted fur, down nobody's alley, being nobody's dog, past the empty vodka bottles, past the peanut butter jars, with wires full of electricity, and the birds asleep somewhere. Down the alley he went, nobody's dog, moving through it all, brave as any army. Nice poem about a dog. I was chastised. She was driving the car. There was a sharp disagreement about something. She parked and we got out to go into the cafe to eat. And I told her, without me, you are nothing. And with me, you are even less. She said, you know, I really have to laugh at you. You are so pathetic when you try to act superior. I didn't answer. We entered, were taken to a table and opened our menus. I'll have a Chinese beer, I told the waitress. Now. Nice short one. How about another one for today? Faux pas. At the track today, they were putting them into the gate, and I hadn't gotten my bet down yet. And the fellow ahead of me seemed terribly slow in making his transaction. He was fumbling awkwardly. So I hollered at him, come on, pick up your fucking tickets. The people in the other lines looked at us. Come on, pick 'em up, buddy. Then the fellow turned. He had no hands. Yes, I got my bet down, and my horse ran last. Interesting one there. Bukowski making a faux pas. I think we'll be covering that really shortly here with another one of these. I guess they're calling them Karens, who went out into the world today, not wearing a mask, bravely and proudly at her local cafe. Well, let's just watch this scene. As Bukowski mentioned, faux pas. I was going to play something else first, but here it is. They have her name, they have her phone number, they have her Facebook page. We're not going to show that here. But let's rest assured this person is in trouble. But here it is. Here's the scene from a cafe somewhere in America. You gotta love the part right there where she figures out she's being recorded. She was acting with impunity. She was free. Starts out, she's at the counter. The other lady had asked the people at the cafe why they're serving this woman without a mask, and that maybe everyone should wear masks. Well, this woman at the counter here overheard that. So she overheard herself being ratted out on, and she took it really badly, calling the other person a pussy. Seems like a Republican thing to do, I guess, now, the whole cuck thing, that you're weak if you don't wear a mask, if you're not afraid of the world's most contagious virus, not contiguous. It's not connected to other things. It's contagious, damn it. But yes, if you're afraid of the world's most contagious virus, and if you're wearing a mask, you're actually showing a sign of community. You're saying that I don't know if I have the virus or not, but I don't want to spread it to you because I care about you. That's what you say when you wear a mask. And a lot of people don't want to care about other people, so they don't want to wear a mask. But let's watch this Karen again. Say it to my face, you know. She's, you know, oh, I'm so big and strong. And again, this is a disastrous video. Sadly, this woman's going to have to start her life over after this. It's over. And again, she's on her phone. She's in such a hurry. She's so important. She's got her giant leather bag, her workout clothes. You know, there's a lot going on here in this scene. One of the main things is the obsession with the phone. If she hadn't been so focused on the phone, maybe she would have seen the person recording her to her left. Maybe she would have acted differently now that she's known she's recorded. Gotta finish sending that important text, though. You're in a fight in the real world, but, you know, you're texting, so priorities. All right, you got your bagel. You could just walk away here. Victory, right? You had a little verbal, you know, assault back and forth. You call him a pussy. She doesn't walk away. So, sad to say, but coughing on someone in this pandemic environment is essentially assault. So she's essentially assaulting this woman here because the woman did rat her out, saying she should wear a mask. Oh, I'm caught. I'm so caught. I love this look right here. This is like, I am the man. I'm getting business done. I'm coughing on people in my giant leather purse. And then she walks back, and there's a camera. Look up. Oh, deer in the headlights. So, yep, they got this girl's name. They got her Facebook. They got her LinkedIn. Are you ready for the funnest part? She works for a healthcare company. She works for a healthcare company. She's not wearing a mask, and she's aggressively coughing on another human being. Come on, lady. It's over. It's over for you. Let's play the next one. I'm probably going to lose our ad rights here, but this was so good. This is the You're About to Lose Your Job remix. And, of course, it's about the police officer here, but we can also use it to identify this wonderful Karen of the day. Karen.
Lose your job.
You're about to lose your job.
You about to lose your job. Get this dance. You about to lose your job because you are detaining me for nothing. You about to lose your job.
You about to lose your job. You about to lose your job. Your job. You about to lose. Yeah. Your job. For nothing. Lose your job. He's about to lose your job. For nothing. All right, that was very good, but there goes our ad rights and everything. So please support the show by giving us a thumbs up and a share. That's free. You could subscribe down below, hit the bell for notifications. And if you like, check out worldcryptonetwork.store, buy a t-shirt. Basically, whenever we play any kind of music or video, really, we generally lose our 50 cents a show that we make. So it's a bit rough there. I just heard this morning on Morning Joe over on the MSNBC. It's on their podcast. This is a doctor speaking about the coronavirus. And again, normally whenever I play anything, I lose my ad rights, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's important to bring you information and to bring it to you directly from the source whenever possible. And I have the ability to play video and audio. So again, I have to use it. This is from Morning Joe, yesterday's show.
Willie.
Hey, Dr. Gupta, it's Willie. Good to have you on this morning. Obviously, the country has averted its eyes to another issue for the last couple of weeks, rightly so. But you, as a doctor, as a public health expert, have not been averting your eyes. You've been watching exactly what's going on with coronavirus, what continues to happen. So where are we right now? I think psychologically, a lot of people think that we've sort of turned a corner here and it may be safe to kind of go back out and resume our lives this summer. But how do you put it? Where are we right now?
Willie, always good to see you. You know, what I would say here is you flashed the Surgeon General's comments. I'm not sure where he's getting his data. And maybe he's getting it from the president or the vice president, but certainly not Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx, because the curve isn't flattening in 22 states at least. Certainly globally, we're seeing very alarming findings not far from us, Brazil, Mexico, not super far from us, even out in Europe and places, Africa and Asia. So we should be concerned about the global landscape because, one, that means that fall wave is probably going to be an August wave. And right now what's happening is, are we actually in phase 2 of the first wave? It doesn't seem like it really went away. And unlike March, when there was an appetite to say, okay, we'll yield to intrusive measures on our lives, we'll not go to work. I mean, and the economic catastrophe that incurred, we don't have that runway anymore. We don't have the ability to say, you got to stay home or you got to mask. Governor Kemp in Georgia basically saying no more masking in restaurants made no sense. Dr. Campbell's point, temperatures is not going to bring a reprieve. And I think most alarming, I'm about to go into a shift in the ICU. Arizona ICUs are completely packed. That to us is what's very worrisome here. And you add protests, you add people's Willie, as you said, lack of appetite to comply with masking anymore. People are getting tired. This is very alarming. So we're very much not flattening the curve. The curve is re-expanding, and we just need to talk openly about it. And the Surgeon General should be at the tip of that spear, not try to convince us that all is well.
So the curve is expanding, as you say. It's not flattening across the country. It's been flattened in some of the hot spots like New York City, which got so much of the attention in the early days and weeks of this crisis. So what do we do now? We've talked about testing for 3 months. Testing. That talk has sort of subsided as if testing is readily available to everyone who wants it. Is testing still the most important part of this story, Dr. Gupta? And where are we on testing?
It's always going to be important, Willie, and that's just a fact of life in a pandemic. But I think there's 2 things that we could potentially do up front. 3 things, rather. I don't think this is ever going to happen at this point, but we need the president and the vice president to not undermine, be adversaries of the public health world. You have the president about to have a super spreader event in Tulsa. The fact that he's asking for informed consent of his supporters before a rally where there's going to be no social distancing or masking is egregious. That's what I do before I do a procedure in the ICU because I know there might be harm, but there's potential benefit. What's the benefit to these supporters other than giving applause to the president? It makes no sense. We need to stop that. We need to ban political rallies. We need to encourage masking and frankly make it mandatory. I've been saying that for weeks. And contact tracing. I'm worried about the ability to scale contact tracing because that requires public trust. It requires people to say, I believe in our public institutions and our elected leadership. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter if it's an app or a human being, no one's going to assent to it. So really, those are the 3 things I would say we need to really focus our attention on. That requires high-level leadership.
Really amazing words there from Dr. Gupta, that the virus is accelerating, that the leadership is not paying any attention to it, even the Surgeon General, and that the president himself is continuing to have political rallies, as the doctor himself called it, a super spreader event, and that he's making his people sign legal liability waivers before they go to the rally, indemnifying him of any potential damages or deaths, or lots and lots of deaths from attending the rally. As the doctor says, this is something that he has people sign when he does procedures, when he does a surgery to remove something, to improve something, to make their lives better, right? To save their lives in many cases. Yet they're having them sign the same kind of document to go to a political rally, where even the doctor says, what do you contribute? What is your best possible day at a political rally? You clap for the president, great. Maybe you get put on stage behind him. You're on TV for a couple minutes clapping for the president. Great. Maybe he mentions you in a speech. Fantastic. But other than that, you risk dying. You risk taking home the virus to your family, killing your loved ones, making them sick for weeks, maybe ruining their ability to breathe for the rest of their lives. But again, why bother doing anything? Just let it happen. You don't believe in science anyway. So, stunning words there from the doctor. Great stuff from Morning Joe. Don't usually play audio like that, but there it is. And now, Bitcoin. Bitcoin market dynamics see change after Bitcoin reward halving. No shit. Really? Really? Really changing the reward from 12.5 Bitcoin every 10 minutes to 6.25 changed things in the market? No. I didn't want to talk about this first. Let's keep going. Bitcoin price drop to key 9,000 support could place the uptrend in peril. Dun, dun, dun. Even though it's a different guy than it used to be and all that stuff, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Cointelegraph really has some nice art. They are doing a nice job on the art, I gotta say. They keep that up. The price of Bitcoin was unable to break through the resistance zone. Oh, that's what they're calling it now. The resistance zone. Very sci-fi. At 10,000 and corrected nearly 10% in a day. The drop-down occurred on the same day that U.S. equity markets saw a substantial retracement. No shit. These moves automatically made investors and traders fearful of further continuation of this correlation. However, is the fear that Bitcoin price will continue to drop if stocks correct further warranted? Or was the Bitcoin correction overdue after multiple rejections at $10,000? Well, no one really knows the answer to this, and they don't know either. Drug dealer just sentenced to 25 years. Hope to build a better Bitcoin miner. Well, it's not going to happen selling drugs. He had a background in encryption and planned to build a Bitcoin miner had he beaten the rap. Okay, very interesting. Background in encryption. If he wins an appeal, he would still go on extradition to the Philippines where he's wanted on a murder charge dating back to 2010. So again, it looks like Coinbase is just covering this because in a letter he wrote to the judge, he says, I plan to start a business selling and hosting Bitcoin miners. He included some background on what Bitcoin is and how it works. He claimed he acquired this experience while working for the UK Signals Intelligence Agency. This just gets deeper and deeper. Apparently, Leroux might be or could have ties to Satoshi Nakamoto. That's why we're talking about this. Paul Leroux had the technical skills to create Bitcoin. Dun, dun, dun. There are many other programmers who fit the bill. Before the prosecution, he wanted to enter Bitcoin mining business. Okay. Well, there you go. Another potential Satoshi Nakamoto in jail. Kraken explains impact if all $300 billion in stimulus checks was invested in Bitcoin. And this just seems kind of tone deaf. The stimulus check mainly, I mean, I know they gave it to everybody who didn't make over a certain amount. So, you know, I got one and stuff. But it was mainly about people who couldn't pay their bills, people who needed to pay their rent, people who had just lost their jobs. And I know it's fun for everybody to say, oh, you should just invest it in Bitcoin, and it's just so easy, and it's only $1,200, and whatever, the things that Bitcoiners are saying. But real people have real bills, and if you don't pay the rent, you get kicked out. So the impact if all the stimulus checks were invested in Bitcoin is all kinds of people would have gotten kicked out of their houses, wouldn't have been able to feed their families, and they would have said, why did you put that stimulus check into a random investment when we gave it to you to feed your family? So I don't really understand why Kraken's speculating about this. Again, I guess at a very minor speculation, if more people bought Bitcoin, the price would go up. So I guess in that way, everyone would make money. So it would be better, I guess. But again, you have to pay your rent. You have to buy food. These are time-sensitive purchases. That's what the stimulus was for. It's sad they didn't give a second stimulus. It's sad they didn't give a larger stimulus. If they gave a larger stimulus, maybe we could say, take the $1,200, put $120 in Bitcoin, put 10% of it in Bitcoin. That would be a much more reasonable thing for someone to do, and especially given their economic situation. So I don't know why they're pressing this and trying to get press off this. It just seems greedy. And let's read it another way. Bitcoin Exchange explains impact if all $300 billion in stimulus was invested in a product that we sell at our Bitcoin exchange. They could have all bought Cheetos. What if everyone bought Cheetos? Well, the price of Cheetos would go up. I'm not so sure, but the Lay's stock company would go up if you owned Frito-Lay's or whatever company owns Cheetos. I'm going to guess Frito-Lay. If you own their stock, then it would go up. So if we bought chips and if we bought chip stock, we'd be set, said the company that sells chips and sells chip stock. So yeah, I don't get that. JP Morgan completes surprise Bitcoin flip and calls a price floor. Nice. JP Morgan, one of Wall Street's biggest banks, and up until recently an outspoken Bitcoin critic, calling it a Ponzi scheme, saying that everyone was going to lose all their money, saying that you shouldn't invest, blah, 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 has changed its tune on the world's fledgling cryptocurrency. The chief executive who once branded Bitcoin a fraud now says Bitcoin is looking mostly positive and that cryptocurrencies more broadly have longevity as an asset class. All right. Great to hear it. Welcome on board, JP Morgan. I'm sure we can pull up videos from a few years ago where we called you fools, and now you've completed the fool cycle. Welcome to Bitcoin. Now we're going to go back and talk about that story I skipped. Podcast host loses 7 years of Bitcoin savings in a single mistake. Entrepreneur Eric Savix had been saving up in Bitcoin for 7 years. He lost his entire $113,000 stash in 20 minutes. And I don't like to talk about this. It's very sad that the guy lost his money. It's a lot of money. He'd been saving it for a long time. Apparently he has a podcast. Apparently it's about crypto. And cryptocurrency includes Bitcoin. So without even getting into the details, because it doesn't matter, let's talk about what he did wrong and why should really say podcast host loses entire savings in a single stupid mistake, right? His mistake is a mistake of ignorance, right? Let me go over it with you one more time. I'm sure we've talked about it here before. When you write down those words, when you create a green address wallet or a Trezor wallet, or in this case, it was a Keep Key wallet. When you write down your 12 or your 24 words, those words are your key. We say this all the time. When they write them down on Trezor, you make 2 copies of them. They test you when you type the words back in. Those words are your key, right? Doesn't have to be a complicated string of letters and numbers. They can do it with words. Computers are magic, right? So the computer takes your magic words, and that is your money. So naturally, I hope you guys know, as listeners of this show, as people who've watched the World Crypto Network here for years, you never enter your words into something that you don't trust. In general, you never enter your words. Entering your words is like restoring your backup. If you've completely destroyed your Keep Key, if you've reinstalled the firmware halfway, damaged it, you bought a new Keep Key, you bought a new Trezor, something like that, that's when you enter your words, right? At the creation of a wallet. What happened here is he downloaded some kind of a Keep Key plugin for the Chrome browser, and it was a fake, right? It was a fake plugin. Now, I don't know how he got fooled into entering his words, right? Because we've just established that even podcast listeners who've listened to maybe just a few episodes know that your words are your key. Your key are your words. These are the same things. When you put your words into a safe deposit box or a safe at your house, or you bury them under your yard, or whatever you do with your magic words, you break them up into parts and send them to friends, your words are your key. So at some point, I guess he thought that he was restoring the wallet, which would have set huge red flags off in everyone's mind, because you know if you're doing a wallet restore. You're doing a wallet restore if you do a firmware update and you screw up, or you do a firmware update and it screws up, or you just want to erase your wallet and start over again for some random reason, or you brought a brand new wallet and you want to restore the wallet. Restoring the wallet is a really clear thing. It's like restoring from backup and erasing my hard drive. I know it when I'm doing it, right? I never make a mistake. Restore from backup, erase all my data, only have the backup. No, you know what you're doing. And this guy, podcast host for 7 years, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of his podcast. I'm sure it's very good, but he should know. He should know that his words are his key. Now let's look at some of the other mistakes he made, because I skimmed this article earlier. If you look at the Keep Key page here, this is the page that tricked him into entering his phrase. Huge disaster. Never enter your phrase. But even right here, if we look very closely at the description, it says, enter your mnemonic phase. They mistyped phrase and spelled it as phase. So professional programs like KeepKey and Trezor and Green Wallet even should never have a typo in them. They should always be correct. So if you do see a typo, it's time to set off your spidey sense and to say, something's not right. I don't feel good about this. Now, sadly, of course, he didn't see it. He only noticed it now. But still. It's also kind of bad grammar. If you read the gray text here, it says, enter your 12-18-24 word phrase, comma, lowercase, to recover your funds ampersand transactions. So it's not very well written, and it's not very well spaced. It's just not very well designed. But again, I don't use KeepKey, so I don't know how bad their graphics are. But your graphics and your words should be tight on a hardware wallet. And if they're not tight, just don't trust the wallet. If he didn't enter his key here, nothing would have happened. He would have just had his key. So don't want to do too much on this. Feel bad for the guy. It sucks. It could happen to all of us. The other thing I'd say, and maybe I'm guilty of this too, but he's got it all in one stack. Trezors, ledgers, keep keys, they're not that expensive. And I know it does seem, it's like you feel like you could be buying more Bitcoin with that money. I'm with you. I feel it. But at the same time, if your investment rises above a certain level, and for some of us it has, for this guy it clearly did, you need to change your strategy and increase your security. Let's say that this guy had $13,000 in his keep key, right? Because that's probably what he had before Bitcoin went up. $13,000, it's a lot of money. It's a car almost, that kind of thing. But it's okay, I suppose, to have that in one Trezor or in one keep key. But then let's say that his investment goes up 10 times and his $13,000 is now worth $113,000. A Trezor or a ledger is like $50, $100, right? Let's just say. So for $100, it's okay to secure 13 grand, but you have to ask yourself the question, for $100, is it okay to secure $113,000? If your $100 toy broke or got smashed or burnt up, maybe you could buy a second copy for another 100, keep that in a different place. Now you have 2 copies. So that's the first thing you could do. The second thing you could do is, we're not talking about Napoleonic troops here. You could divide them. If he had stored his Bitcoin stash in, let's say, 5 hardware wallets, he would have done this key entry thing on the first hardware wallet, and he would have only lost 1/5 of his stash. Additionally, maybe with the 5 hardware wallet plan, one of those hardware wallets was in your house, and your house burned down, but the other 4 were in a safe deposit box, your friend's house, your cousin's house, you buried one of them underneath the yard, whatever. The idea being, if your investment becomes too large, buy another Trezor or ledger and create a separate, not just a separate copy, split it up into smaller amounts. Obviously, we don't have this problem, but in America, the FDIC, the Federal Insurance Company, started after the Great Depression, World War II, Social Security times. It insures bank accounts for $100,000. Now, this isn't a problem that I have, but let's imagine, that you were richer than me and you had $1 million. If you stored that $1 million in one bank account, only $100,000 of it would be insured. So if the bank went bankrupt or something happened and your other $900,000 went away, it would be your own fault for storing it in just one bank. I don't know what it's like to be a rich person, but I imagine if I was a rich person that I would have multiple bank accounts because it doesn't really cost anything. There's a little bit of upkeep. You might want to use software like mint.com to keep track of all your bank accounts. Certainly, I do it to keep track of all my credit cards. It's the negative way, the other direction. But no, split it up into multiple bank accounts. If you have this much Bitcoin, split it up into multiple hardware wallets. This way, if you screw it up, you only lose one. If it's stolen from you physically, you only lose one. If somebody breaks into your house and they want your Bitcoin and blah, 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 and things are really bad, you give them one of the hardware wallets. They're not going to have heard this. They're not going to assume you have 5 more. Or maybe you give them 2. I mean, by splitting it up, you increase your chances of holding on to your stake. So just to recap here, I don't want to drag this guy through the mud or whatever. He's probably feeling really bad. He definitely lost his stack. And it's not coming back. Bitcoin are gone. And it's a nice, I don't know, it's not a nice gesture. We'll talk about that next, I guess. But just to recap, your words are your key. Never enter your words into any system that you don't trust. Use your senses to know if you trust a system. You're not always going to be right. I had some stupid altcoins in one exchange once, and I didn't trust them, so I sold them for Bitcoin, and I moved it out, and then the stupid altcoin went up in value, and the exchange is still up today. So sometimes you make a mistake like that, you cost yourself money. In the other way, I had a bad feeling about Cryptsy back in the day, just didn't feel good, no specific reason, so I pulled my money out of there, and then when Cryptsy went down, it didn't matter because I didn't have any money in there. So trust your feelings, listen to your feelings, be patient, move slowly. There's no reason to rush through something like entering your key. Even if he had not given them the last word, he would be okay. If he had typed the whole thing and then gotten to the end and said, oh, wait a minute, why am I typing my key in? Am I restoring from backup? Did I restart the wallet? Like, what's going on here? Is this really safe? So be careful with your private key. Never type it in anywhere. And the other lesson is store your crypto in multiple hardware wallets. If your investment goes up in value, as much as we'd love to just hold the Bitcoin, and I find it similar to another thing where you could buy a nicer piece or a vaporizer, but you'd rather buy more stuff. And, with the Bitcoin, yes, you want to hold all the Bitcoin you can, but look at this guy. He cheaped out on not buying new hardware wallets, and now his stash is gone, and he could have easily bought a ton of hardware wallets just for fun. And you don't even have to split your stack up that much. Even if he did 90% in his one wallet and like 3% in 3 other hardware wallets, at least he would have those other 3%. He'd have 9% or so of his money saved. And maybe he could have used those for this strange Keep Key plugin in the Chrome browser that stole all his money. So sad story. I hope we can use it as a learning lesson. I hope that you guys are ordering another Trezor right now and saying that's a really good idea. It's really inexpensive. If I split my stack in half, maybe you haven't even gotten to the point where your stack's worth a lot of money. You could just split it now. I don't want to talk out of. There's an old story. Back in the day when we used to hang out with Andreas Antonopoulos, we do the Bitcoin group together. One time, Andreas was into Bitcoin before us and so on and so forth. But he told us back in the day, everyone had paper wallets. And he said that he was reducing his paper wallets, that they had become too big. So he'd started out, let's just imagine back in the day when Bitcoin were not worth a lot of money. And I do believe Andreas sold all of his Bitcoin to travel the world and so on and so forth until the community randomly decided to give him $1 billion. But let's say he was doing that. He was selling his Bitcoin. So if he had wallets that were like 5 Bitcoin and he had like five Bitcoin paper wallets, what he would do is take those and split those up into single Bitcoin paper wallets. In the same way, later on, as the price went up higher, you'd want to take your single Bitcoin paper wallets and maybe split them up into half Bitcoin or quarter Bitcoin paper wallets. The same idea should be true for your hardware wallets. Maybe you had a Bitcoin in your Trezor, and a Bitcoin was worth like $1,000, not a lot. Now it's $10,000. Maybe you'd prefer to have 2 Trezors and have half a Bitcoin in each one of your Trezors. This way, one of your Trezors could be put in a safe deposit box. You could bury it under the house or hide it in your stuff. You really get rid of it. And then the other Trezor is more your like working Trezor, right? So these ideas have been out there for a long time. I don't know if anybody talks about them anymore. Certainly no one wants to talk about their wealth or their lack of wealth. But that's another thing. You don't want to just cover this up. If this guy, I don't know what his podcasts are like, but if he talked about his cold storage solution on his podcast, maybe he would have gotten better ideas, better suggestions from the audience. Maybe he could have avoided this disaster. So, sad story. Now, on the other side, Binance CEO offers help to scam victim who lost his Bitcoin life savings. The CEO of the behemoth crypto exchange has offered to blacklist the receiving address in the Bitcoin scam. Exchanges have been doing this for a while. They've been blacklisting coins from hacks and so on and so forth, trying not to accept them. The obvious problem with this is it ruins Bitcoin's fungibility as money. Generally with cash, unless it's marked bills, and even then, who knows how they tell that they're marked unless they're looking for them, you can spend cash anywhere. You can use cash to buy anything. Therefore, if you walk up to a guy on the street and you ask him what his private key is, and he gives it to you, you could spend his cash anywhere that you want, right? Because he gave you the private key. It's over. So they're trying to change this in Bitcoin. They try to change this on the exchanges. I'm not sure it's such a good idea. It would be great if we could stop this theft and give this guy his money back, or maybe if the other guy accepted it. But I don't think it's worth destroying the fungibility of Bitcoin and destroying everyone else's Bitcoin. Because, again, you could be blacklisted by mistake. You could be not part of the hack, but labeled as part of the hack. Now, all of a sudden, you can't spend your life savings. You could have bought these Bitcoins legitimately from someone on the street who stole them from the guy. And then your legitimate purchase is denied because they've blacklisted your Bitcoins. So not a good look from Binance, but we've been here before. Last time when Binance got hacked, the Binance CEO went out publicly. And again, I don't know why he would say this. It shows a big lack of information. But he went out publicly and said, hey, maybe we could roll back the Bitcoin blockchain to save Binance's money. And everyone was horrified. We don't do this. That's not what we do. And it's very strange to see people like the Binance CEO rise to where he is without that understanding that we don't roll back Bitcoin. And it's same to see this guy, podcast host for 7 years, keeping all of his money in one stack and then randomly entering his entire private key to some strange program he downloaded. So a lot of people seem to be getting to some place by skipping all the education, right? They're not showing their work. They're not progressing through the normal levels. They're just jumping to the top, standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Leaves me cold. Not sure if it's a good idea to jump to the top. It might be better to learn things on your way up, and then you'll have the knowledge with you when you get to the top. Rejection at 10K forces Bitcoin to lower support levels. Duh. However, the primary trend is still valid, and it can be classified as an uptrend. The simple reasoning is that Bitcoin has been making higher lows since the heavy crash to $3,700 on March 12th. Such an uptrend is signaled through higher lows and support/resistance flips. In this case, the most recent higher low is the level at 8,600. In order for the market to hold, it's essential to keep the upward momentum going through another higher low above 8,600. Good stuff. And check out the World Crypto Network store at worldcryptonetwork.store. You can get your own Trezors Don't Float t-shirt. Tired of telling your friends what happened to all your Bitcoin? Tired of telling them over and over about the boating accident, the Titanic, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? Get your own Treasures Don't Float t-shirt and tell them what happened to you in t-shirt form. Also, check out the World Crypto Network podcast. It's up to date again because I figured out that YouTube was blocking me from downloading videos because I downloaded too many videos. So I had to turn on my VPN so I could download the video, convert it to MP3, and upload it to the podcast. Check it out on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and many more places where podcasts are served. The price of Bitcoin is flat and boring, up 0.003%, $2.87 up. Oh, $5.40 up. I spoke too soon. With a last of 9,430, a high of 9,485, and a low of 9,318. That's $1 for 10,603 Satoshis. Volume was about normal for a weekend, with 2,068 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 83% heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance is at 65.64%. And now, the news. Not the news. Not the news. Interesting stuff about Craig Wright's been happening the last couple days. As Fluffy Pony, a Monero contributor, writes, just so we're clear, Craig Wright has openly admitted, via his lawyers, to be the guy that stole 80,000 Bitcoins from Mt. Gox. The screenshots below show the court documents indicating that the 1FEEX address is where the stolen Mt. Gox funds were sent. What do you have to say, Calvin Ayre? So this is a very strange story that broke yesterday. We didn't get a chance to include it on the Bitcoin group. It was right on the line there. But Craig Wright has strangely admitted to taking 80,000 Bitcoins from Mt. Gox. Not sure. Story developing. We'll see if I think there's some more on this. Check out the Bitcoin group. We did it live yesterday. It's good stuff. You can check it out on the World Crypto Network, the Bitcoin group. In Reno, there's a bike-borne Black Lives Matter protest. Looking good there, Reno. Nice. To be so old. Like and know if you've used one of these. This is a zip drive, iOmega. And at the time, floppy disks held 1.44 megs, something like that. Hardly anything at all. This held 100 megs. This is like 100 floppy disks in your hand. It had a serial port connection, I think. Maybe a SCSI. Again, you could get the SCSI one. It would be faster. Or you could get the serial port connection. This was before USB. And these was great. We used to go to the computer labs, and you'd load these up with MP3s that you'd get from the internet. And you'd go back home, and then you'd load them on your computer, and then you could listen to music. They had another product called the Jazz Drive, J-A-Z, which held an astounding, at the time, gigabyte disks. Jazz drives were incredible, much cooler than zip drives. You could move a whole gigabyte around. The disks were very expensive for Jazz drives. The disks were relatively expensive for zip drives. I think I had 3 or 4 of the disks. So you could carry around 400 megs. So very cool stuff. Blast from the past, zip drives. Dr. Fauci said no one should be holding large events when talking about Trump holding rallies because it's going to spread the coronavirus. It's nice to hear basic logic for once, even if it's not being followed. King Kobe writes, we've got more high-quality reporting from CNBC. The market on the left is a bull market. The market in the middle is a bear market. And the market that just goes up and down all the time is a kangaroo. I never heard of a kangaroo market, but great stuff. Not included here, although for all I know, they might have said it. But the bull market is supposedly named because of the bull's horn. The market, when it's raging like a bull, is supposed to look like a bull hitting, like moving his neck to stick his horn up in the air. It's the forward movement of the horn pointing upward that is describing the bull. Whereas the bear, it's a slash downward. The bear with his paw is slashing at the market and clawing, creating a downward movement. I don't know about the kangaroo. I think they just made that up. And check out Jimmy. He sent in a picture of his first laptop to go with the zip drive there. He probably had a zip drive as well. But check it out here. It's got cassette tape backup. This is pretty awesome. This is a little bit before my time, actually. And looks like he's got a monochrome or an LCD screen there. Almost looks like a laptop, but you know it isn't. And folds up there. And then to the left, you see that cassette deck there. That's actually part of the computer. And those tapes there are a vital part of the computer. So very cool. Thanks, Jimmy, for sharing this cool picture of, it says it's his first laptop. So it is a laptop of sorts. Look at the size of those keys on a laptop. Man, those are full keyboard there. And it had a trusty cassette backup. So very cool. Thanks to Jimmy at CryptoZorro, crypto with an I. Cool stuff on Twitter. King Kobe says, there are two reasons why people don't like Craig Wright. Firstly, he has led an anti-Bitcoin campaign claiming he is Satoshi without any evidence, while promoting an alternative fork and suing people that call him out. The second reason is everything else about him. Nailed. George Floyd is not alone. USA Today examined 32 fatal encounters with police in which victims said they couldn't breathe while being restrained. At least 134 people have died in police custody from asphyxia/restraint in the past decade alone. So it's time to end police brutality. It's time to end police violence. It's time to defund the police. We've seen some amazing turnarounds in the National Football League. Previously attacking Colin Kaepernick for his peaceful protest, now being supported by the head coach for the Houston Texans. Very conservative state. The coach said, "Yeah, I'll take a knee. The players have a right to protest, a right to be heard. They're not taking a knee because they're against our flag. They're taking a knee because they haven't been treated equally in this country for over 400 years. And where were these guys years ago? This is the whole point that Kaepernick and others were trying to make years ago that was completely misheard and not understood by the NFL, and the owner of the Dallas Cowboys specifically spoke out against it, threatened his players. This will not be forgotten. This is not over, but it's good to see the NFL on the right side of history for once. It's a big change for them. Just a reminder, the President of the United States cannot speak coherently. He cannot process a thought. This is not normal. This is not safe. They asked the President if what he thinks that the protesters want. Let's see what he thinks that they want. So I'm curious for you. What do you think the protesters, not the looters and the rioters, we are intelligent enough to know the difference in our culture, right? What do you think they, protesters, want? What do you think they need right now from you? Protesters for different reasons. You're protesting also because you know, they didn't just know, I've watched very closely. Why are you here? They really weren't able to say, but they were there for a reason, perhaps. But a lot of them were really there because they were following the crowd. A lot of them were there because what we witnessed was a terrible thing. What we saw was a terrible thing. And we've seen it over the years. We haven't, you know. This was one horrible example, but you've seen other terrible examples. You know that better than anybody would know it. And I know it. I've seen it too. I've seen it before I was president. I've seen it. I think it's a shame. I think it's a disgrace. And it's got to stop at the same time. You also know that we have incredible people in law enforcement and that we have to cherish them and take care of them. And we can't let something like this we have a bad apple and go out and destroy the image of a whole millions of people that take really good care of us. And then you have a movement where they say, let's not have a police department. And you say, where are these people coming from? Yes, that was the question. What do these people want? What do they need from you? What a rambling, complete non-answer. Very deranged sounding in parts, repetition, breaking up the sentences, unable to focus. Time to call the doctors. And coronavirus continues to spread and get worse. Dr. Stephen Thrasher says, it's as if 3 or 4 full Boeing 737s were crashing every day, killing everyone on board in the U.S. There's still not a vaccine, but because the states and businesses don't want to pay anymore, they're like, don't mind many daily plane crashes full of death. We don't mind that. That's fine. There's just 2 or 3 entire plane crashes full of death every day, and no one's doing anything, not even wearing masks. Pay it no mind. And during a global pandemic, during Gay Pride Month, and on the 4th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, the Trump administration just finalized a rule that would remove non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people in healthcare and health insurance. Just stunning. Chinese users saw Zoom as a window through the Great Firewall. Another article about the very sad fall of Zoom. If you're still using Zoom, you should delete it now. If you're still paying for Zoom, you should cancel your subscription. Zoom, just a few days ago, was deleting people and ending events for celebrating the Tiananmen Square Memorial. They were blocking users from China, attempting to maintain the Great Firewall of China. Before that, they said that they were more than happy to not encrypt their free users and for the purposes of handing them over to law enforcement. If you pay, you get encryption. If you don't pay, we get the opportunity to hand you over to law enforcement. Zoom, a bad company. Cancel now. And check out the Lightning Hack Sprint. It's starting soon over on the FOMO channel, whatever that is. So you can check that out. They're doing the Lightning Network. It's the 3rd hack sprint. It's an online hackathon. So check that out. Lightning Network. And we played the video of the lady coughing on someone in the cafe. She was mad because they wanted her to wear a mask, which would have protected everyone from the coronavirus. Instead, she goes over there and coughs on her, tries to spread the virus directly to her, and then, of course, is busted, caught on video. Everyone has your face, and now, very soon, they'll likely have your job. It's very strange because she works for a healthcare company, so you think she'd know better. Fox News photoshopped this image of a man with a gun in front of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ. Great name. Fox ran this photoshopped image on their homepage. They used digital editing to insert the man with the gun into the free Capitol Hill image. I cannot stress enough what a severe violation of journalistic ethics this is. So this is just happening now. Fox has faked this image and put it on their webpage, likely to make you more afraid of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, where a bunch of hippies are hanging out, watching documentaries, and eating hot dogs. Oh, you should be afraid. We've got the letter here from Samson Mao from Craig Wright. This is the letter where he allegedly claims ownership. Yeah, right here. He says Tulip owns the Bitcoin on the 1FEEX address. The 1FEEX address, later found out, I don't think it's disclosed in this record, was used to steal 80,000 Bitcoins from Mt. Gox. So it does seem like Craig Wright is taking ownership of an account that stole 50 or 80,000 Bitcoins from Mt. Gox. Very strange thing for Craig Wright to do. Story still developing. They say, yes, did Craig Wright just link himself to the Mt. Gox hack of 2011? What a terrible idea. But that seems to be what happened. If your response to calls to abolish the police is reflexively hostile, Angus Johnson urges you to read this piece about prison culture in the New York Times, not just for the force of her arguments and evidence, but as an exercise in common ground and finding common ground with those people to your left. So, sounds like a good idea. I have to check that out. And Molly writes, I can't believe we're still fighting about those fucking Confederate statues. Germany doesn't have statues of Hitler up. No one goes to Goebbels University. Losers don't get stuff named after them. I agree with that. Big data policing programs that attempted to predict individuals' behaviors in Chicago and Los Angeles have been shut down after devastating audits catalog their discriminatory impact and practical failure. Sure, you guys knew all about this. The idea was that technology will let us surveil everyone, and that surveillance will let us stop all crimes before they start, just like pre-crime in Minority Report. We're going to convict you before you do the bad thing. Well, it turns out it doesn't work, and that it's discriminatory, that they just end up picking on certain groups of people, and they don't have evidence or a reason to do so. We've got another national poll here from Nate Silver. Joe Biden with a 7.6% lead overall. We also show Joe Biden leading in almost every state. That's a toss-up at all. 15 points in Colorado, 12 points in Maine, 9 points in Virginia, 8 points in Michigan, 7 points in New England. I don't know what any 2 is. Maybe that's a district in there. New Hampshire, 6 points. Wisconsin, 6 points. Nevada, 6 points. Minnesota, 5 points. Pennsylvania, 3 points. Arizona, 3 points. Florida, 3 points. North Carolina, 2 points. Ohio, 1 point. Georgia's a tie. And Trump is still winning Texas only by 1.4% in Texas and only 1.6% in Iowa. We are looking at a major potential landslide. Bitcoiners sprint to improve Lightning Network in 2-day virtual hackathon. Thanks to CoinDesk for finally covering something about the Lightning Network. That's great. I wonder how they got paid for that. Got to sneak it in the back door, I guess. Jim says, Peggy's writing to Jim. She says, I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I love your show and all you do. Unfortunately, literally 1 out of 200 people are wearing masks, and I see no social distancing. We're going to be in trouble soon, and I get funny looks for wearing a mask. And Jim Cramer, host of Mad Money on CNBC, writes back, I really do fear for you. This darn thing is beyond belief infectious. I really am surprised there isn't more fear. There should be. More stuff on Craig Wright, perhaps revealing himself as the Mt. Gox hacker. Stunning decision to claim credit for that address. Dan the Dark Pill reminds us, remember when Roger Ver embarked on a worldwide lecture tour with Craig Wright to promote the idea that he was Satoshi simply because it served his own anti-Bitcoin interests? Well, now, here we are. And it really does show that choices matter, and that when Roger Ver decided to side with Craig Wright just to hurt Bitcoin, no one believed Craig Wright was Satoshi. I don't think anyone does, or did. He never proved it. His proof was shown to be false pretty quickly. Maybe there was half a day or so where we were kind of excited to have an Australian computer genius as our Satoshi. He was supposed to be a professor. He was supposed to have a supercomputer. It turned out he didn't have any of those things and may have even plagiarized his paper. So, bad move by Roger. Probably hurts us all. But then again, the whole fight Bcash, BSV, is really just the most thing it's hurt is the reputation of the people involved, the people who split off to these failed coins. We told them at the time, we begged them not to. We're much stronger when we're united behind Bitcoin. We're much stronger when we have the coders on our side. They didn't listen. They went off on their own. And as Dan the Dark Pill says, now here we are. Remember when Chuck E. Cheese compared their fake currency to Bitcoin to prize tokens, setting up a Twitter feud between Chuck E. Cheese and furious crypto fans? Well, we have sad news. Chuck E. Cheese approaches bankruptcy and could have to close all of its stores. Of course, as a kid of the arcades of the 80s and 90s, I have fond memories of Chuck E. Cheese back in the old days when they used to have video games. Now they've replaced all the video games with those interactive toy games where you shoot a ball or something and you win some tickets. The video games themselves have been replaced with these video games that are more like rides. You get to play for 3 to 5 minutes on a timer, and when the timer goes up, you die. It's not based on skill at all. So it is not quite the Chuck E. Cheese of my youth, but it is sad to see it go away. And again, we knew this when they picked the fight with Bitcoin. It was really going to look bad, and the Bitcoiners were going to celebrate when they went down. But there it goes, Chuck E. Cheese. Don't mess with Bitcoin, even on Twitter. And here's an amazing protest in San Francisco. This Black Lives March was all healthcare workers. The OP said that like positive protests like this were not being covered, but here it is right here on the World Crypto Network. We're covering it. San Francisco right there. Healthcare workers, a little too close together for me, but that's the marching way. I assume they're all wearing masks. Also, I like their nice tight formation. They've got almost a marching band look going on here. I love it when protesters march. They're completely uncontrollable when they march because you just turn around and you march away from the barricades until you get caught. Kettled, yeah. Hey, we're getting close to the top. We're going to make it. Yesterday, we talked about how the BBC was censoring the Germans. Maybe the greatest episode of Fawlty Towers ever. And if you haven't watched Fawlty Towers, but you love Monty Python and John Cleese, you've got a treat ahead of you. You should watch Fawlty Towers with a W. John Cleese responded to one of the articles, gave an interview to the BBC, and look how they treated him. As John himself says, the BBC's website refers to my fury. I think my comments were quite measured and moderate. So why would the BBC refer to them as my fury? Because it will get them a few more clicks. This sort of things happens when marketing executives and tabloid journalists take charge. Great stuff there from John Cleese. I got to see him speak once at UC Davis. He was doing a tour with a scientist, so half the talk was science and half the talk was John Cleese doing jokes and such. I also got to read his biography last year. Very cool stuff from John Cleese of Monty Python. Here's another protest. This is in Minnesota. The OP writes, it's a shame that Minnesota protests have not gotten any press since they stopped burning things down. The press really has no way and no understanding on how to cover a protest like this. They really only understand violence and sensationalism. But look at this peaceful protest in Minnesota. The crowd stretches all the way down the street there. The street is full of people, and there are people standing on the side of the streets, all out there celebrating Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. So there are good protests, and Minnesota does continue to protest. It's just not on TV for some reason. So try to do our best here to show those things that you don't see on TV. Here's another strange one. It's another message from the Police Union of New York. Remember the last time I think we saw a police union guy was the angry guy with the speech. You're treating the police like thugs. Because they're beating up people in the street like thugs. But here's one where the police union says that we shouldn't take money from the police to invest in social programs because we failed to invest in social programs, so we need more police. You got to love how the answer is always give them more money. It's always like, we will solve the problem. We'll get rid of the racism. We'll stop hitting people with cars, whatever it is we're doing wrong. If only we could have some more money. And it's never worked in the past. And you know what they say is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But maybe our government's a little insane. The president of the police union said, Governor Cuomo and our legislative leaders have no business celebrating today. New York State had been failing our communities for decades, failing to provide economic activity, failing to educate the youth, failing to care for the vulnerable and the mentally ill. Okay, so all of that is a budgetary issue. Right? You're not providing education. You're not providing for the mentally ill. You're putting all the budget in police. Like, maybe he thinks that we don't know this, but we know this, right? They get $6 billion for police in the city of New York. $6 billion. They only get $3 billion in Los Angeles. They're getting ripped off, right? Police officers spend our days addressing issues caused by these failures. Well, it seems like he's on our side here, right? Take away the police's money, give it to the mentally ill, give it to the teenagers, give it to the youth, give it to the job programs. Maybe if we had a better social safety net and people didn't just fall through the cracks and end up homeless on the street with no hope and no opportunity and end up robbing people. Maybe if we had a safety net that stopped that before it happened, maybe the police wouldn't have to bother these people. Oh, wait, he's going to disagree. Now we won't even be able to do that. We will be permanently frozen, stripped of all resources and unable to do the job. What? The job? I thought they couldn't do this job. Police officers spend our days addressing issues caused by these failures. He sounds like he's unhappy. Now, on the next line, he's like, we'll be permanently frozen, stripped of all resources and unable to do the job. But you can't do the job. We don't want to see our communities suffer, but this is what Cuomo and our elected leaders have chosen. So again, the unions are completely off base. They're living in a completely another world. And we've seen this before. You can keep establishing that you have your own world and that you have your own facts, but eventually you're going to hit the wall. Trump's wall was called coronavirus, right? You can dance all you want to around it. The virus just comes back and keeps killing your people. The unions have got to wake up. This George Floyd thing was the end of their power. The smart thing to do is to adopt a different strategy and negotiate and try to still, of course, give up as little as you can. The dumb thing to do is to continue with your old strategy, offend everyone, and set it up for a negotiation where they really do defund you, not just because how you've acted in the past, but how you've been acting in the past week or so. Police are right there on the line. They don't know what to do, and there's no way that they'll ever pick the correct option because they don't want to give up anything at all. Anything at all. We did it! We made it to the top of the news in only an hour. What a great day. It was fun to talk about the news with you guys this morning. We had a lot of good Bitcoin news. We talked a lot about that sad guy that lost his money and how I hope everyone has gone out and ordered a second Trezor or a second Ledger, or they're going to split their money up somehow because you don't have to keep it all in one big pile. I know. Mind-blowing. But still, what do you got to do? You got to tell people. I think that's going to be about it for this Saturday morning. Check out the World Crypto Network podcast, wherever podcasts are downloaded. Check it out on Apple or Spotify or Spreaker or any of the places where podcasts are. It's now up to date. And check out the World Crypto Network store at worldcryptonetwork.store. There might even be links below the video for t-shirts. Check it out. We've got the World Crypto Network mug. This is a limited edition mug. This has both the new logo designed by Crypto Graffiti and the old logo designed by Bruno PT. So you can check out all of the World Crypto Network logos on the dual logo mug, only for $12. Cheap. On the World Crypto Network store. We've also got the brand new Bitcoin Not Bombs Bitcoin Halvening t-shirt. This is a special, unique design created by Davi Barker of Bitcoin Not Bombs. to help support the World Crypto Network and to support Bitcoin. Comes in classic Bitcoin orange. This is a must-have for any Bitcoin conference you're going to go to. The old-timers will all recognize you, but they might say, wow, cool new design. And you can get that now at worldcryptonetwork.store. I think that's about it. I think we're going to end early today. It's a Saturday. It's been a Saturday morning spectacular show. We've got news. We've got the price of Bitcoin. Everyone give us a thumbs up and a share. Be sure to subscribe down below and hit that bell for notifications, and you'll be notified every time we go on the air. Tomorrow is Sunday, and you know what that means. Big Book Day. So I'm still near the big books for now. So as long as that's the case, I will show you some big books tomorrow. Until next time, bye.